Okay, so today is day 2 of Elimination Method. And before I teach the lesson, I just want everyone to understand that this is chapter 6 and we're on systems of equation. That's why we have 2 equations. And there are 3 methods in total that you're going to learn in this chapter. So the first method that I went over was substitution last week. This week is on elimination. So it's very important that the homework and the classwork is done using the elimination method. All right. Some of you were using the substitution method. I did not ask for substitution. I asked for elimination. So I am assessing you on, did you understand my lesson on how to use this method? So today's day 2 is a little bit more difficult. It just adds 1 to 2 more steps than Monday's lesson or this week's lesson. So just pay close attention. So again, remember, both equations must be in standard form, okay? So look at the 2 equations. Yes, they're both in standard form, okay? So then I'm going to look to see which variable I want to eliminate. As you can see, the x and the y, you cannot cancel them out. They all have different coefficients. So therefore, I'm going to ask myself, well, which variable should I eliminate that requires less steps? And that is the x. Because I already have a 6, I know that all I have to do is multiply by -2 in order to make this a -6, okay? Remember, if you choose your x, they have to have the same coefficient. One has to be positive and one has to be negative. So therefore, because this has a 6 already, I know the least common multiple between 6 and 3 is 6. So therefore, I'm going to rewrite the first equation, okay? And then I'm going to multiply the second equation by a -2 because I wanted to have a -6x there. So I'm going to distribute. Okay, and then I'm going to rewrite it. -6x plus 14y equals positive, because negative times a negative, positive 38, right? So now I'm going to add vertically. So when I add, 6 plus -6 cancels, right? -2 plus 14 gives me a 12y equals, and 10 plus 38 gives me a 48. I divide by 12, and y equals 4. Okay, so that means now I'm going to pick one of my equations. I'm going to pick the first equation. And I'm going to substitute in the 4 that I found for y. I'm going to solve this equation for x. So 6x minus 8 equals 10. Add 8. Divide by 6. And I get x equals 3. Okay? So therefore, the point of intersection of these 2 lines is at 3, 4. And that's my answer. All right? All right, let's go to the second example, okay? So this one, if I choose to eliminate the x, I have a 9 here, I will need a -9 here, okay? If I choose to eliminate the y's, okay, this has a +2, so this one needs a -2. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to multiply the first equation by a -2, because this time I chose the y. It really doesn't matter which one you choose. It's up to you. So I'm going to distribute by -2 to all 3 terms. Okay, rewrite the second one underneath it. So -18 plus 3 is -15. The y's cancels, equals -30. Divide by -15. And x equals +2. Okay, so now I need to solve for y, so I'm going to plug in into the second equation. Again, you could pick the first one if you want. I chose the second one. Does not matter. You still end up with the same answer. All right, gotta isolate the y. So subtract 6. I get 2y equals negative 10. Divide by 2. And I get the y is equal to negative 5. So therefore, my point of intersection is 2, comma, negative 5. All right. So the first two examples that I gave you only require you to multiply one equation in order to get one of its variables to eliminate. Sometimes you might have to multiply both equations by a number. Okay, so let's do two more to just practice a little bit more, see if we got the hang of it. So what I just said, this next problem applies. All right, so if I decide to eliminate my x's, the least common multiple between 5 and 2 is 10, okay? Now remember, one of the equation has to be positive and the other one has to be negative. So if I decide to eliminate the x, I know I'm going to multiply the first equation by negative 2, second equation by 5. Okay, so watch. You're going to distribute these numbers, all right? So I get negative 10x plus 6y equals negative 12. Then I get 10x plus 25y equals negative 50. All right? So as you see, I'm showing every single step. The x cancels. When I add straight down, I get 31y equals negative 62. So when I divide 31 to both sides, I get a negative 2 for the y. All right, now plug it in to the original. So I'm going to plug into the second one. So 2x plus 5 times negative 2 equals negative 10. I get 2x minus 10 equals negative 10. Add 10 to both sides. I get 2x equals 0. Divide by 2. And I get x equals 0. So my point of intersection is 0, comma, negative 2. Okay, so as you see, in the first two examples, I just had to multiply one equation. One equation. But in the third example, in order for me to be able to eliminate one of the variables, I had to multiply both equations by the least common multiple. Okay, so let's do one last one so you guys can start your classwork. All right, so let's pick B. Okay, they're both positive. So this tells me I know I need to multiply one of my equations by a negative number. All right, so what is the common multiple between 2 and 3? Which is 6. So I need to multiply this equation by a negative 3 and this one by a positive 2. Now remember, one has to be positive and the other one has to be negative. Okay? So this is why I'm multiplying by a negative. So when I distribute, I'm going to write it horizontally to keep myself organized. Okay? Then I'm going to distribute here. And then I'm able to add straight down. So my b's will cancel. Okay. Divide. And a equals negative 1. Okay. Then I plug it in to solve for b. All right. This gives me negative 6 plus 2b equals 2. Add 6 to both sides. I get 2b equals 8. So when I divide, I get b equals 4. So my solution, now a and b, it always goes in order of the alphabet. So it will be negative 1, comma, 4 is my solution. Okay? So that's today's lesson. It's basically the same thing what we did the other day, but now it requires a little bit more steps. All right, so today's activity, you have to do 4 problems from the textbook. Then your homework will be a quizzes. If you have any questions, please email me.